Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, Dave.
Happy New Year, Dan. Happy New Year. It wasn't until about 10 minutes ago, but never mind. Yeah, yeah, it was all going swimmingly.
It was, yeah,
It
yeah.
was. And Happy New Year to everybody. Our rapidly and regularly diminishing band of listeners.
There's a lot to get through, so let's get through it. We have to go all the way back to Tuesday night, the rare Tuesday night BBL game, where the Leicester Riders were beaten by the London Lions, 75-81, a first defeat for Leicester after 23 consecutive home wins, which had tied their club record. There was no Zubcic, no Soko, no Oni. So Josh Ward-Hibbett into the starters for London Lions, and he was amongst the players hitting threes with Nelson and Decker and London jumping out to a 19-10 start.
Yeah. Um, London were kind of up for this game, for what I could see. I wasn't sure that they would be. I think it probably helped them that they didn't have as many of their big guns to play in relation to the mentality side of it. I don't think it helped them in relation to competing on the court because they had to find minutes from strange places. But certainly from the mentality side, they were ready. And they've got a triumvirate of Taylor, albeit an early Taylor, insofar as how long he's been with the team, Decker, and Nelson and Kufos. That's not even a triumvirate; that's a quadrumvirate. So those four are going to be a solid basis for any BBL team. And Leicester, a little bit tentative, I thought initially. I thought that if anything, the game was probably meant a little bit more to them, and they were a little bit less assertive than ordinarily, certainly normal. It doesn't help when you've got Kufos in the middle because Kufos was exceptional all night. Kufos was taking away a lot of the easy stuff. And and the other thing that really intrigued me was, and this is, credit to London because, whether they've got, full talent, half talent, whatever, they do put thought into what they're doing. Decker was guarding Loving in this game at the beginning of the game. Now, Decker, I actually had a couple of little clicks in my brain about that. And I went back and looked at some numbers, and they played against each other in college.
Yeah.
Decker was at Wisconsin, top of the Big Ten. Loving was Ohio State. That's a massive, massive game. That's
It is a big game, that.
That's high level stuff going on there, and they will have matched up. And it's quite. I hope I'm not giving London too much credit. I don't think I am. But I think it's pretty clear that Decker said, "Look, I got him. I know him. I'm guarding him because we're not going to let him get off and beat us because I've played against him before and I know who he is and I know how he plays." And that is interesting because it meant that because Decker's played the three all year, and with Ward-Hibbett coming in, arguably, Ward-Hibbett's probably more suited to be a four because he's undersized, but he offensive rebounds, he's a hustle guy, that type of thing. It doesn't change anything. But Ward-Hibbett ends up guarding Jackson instead, and Decker ends up guarding Loving. And I thought that really took Leicester out a little bit. Also, their starting lineup wasn't right and hasn't been right. And subsequently, the next game, they changed the starting lineup, which didn't help, which meant that London were able to get going. Kufos as well, from kind of being vaguely skeptical at the beginning of the season, I'm kind of now entirely on the Costa Kufos train. Just the way that he plays the game, the serenity.
I was the same. I looked at that and thought that's a European signing rather than a BBL signing, but he's been excellent in BBL.
Yeah, just the serenity with which he plays the game. You see some of the other guys in the league who will get the ball on the roll and they'll plow into somebody. He's 7 foot tall. He's got good hands. He's able to catch the ball in traffic, and he's always able to find a way to finish. And it's not the same finish every time. It can be a dribble, it can be a dunk, it can be his little push shot, it can be everything. And I think the size and the mobility he's playing with and his finishing, it is an unanswerable problem for nearly every team in the league when he's playing like that. And there's actually a noticeable difference offensively, even with him and Sharma. When Sharma's in the game, the way they play. And you can see that Taylor and Kufos already have this kind of synergy about them. So London basically did a number on Leicester in the first half.
It was 19-13 at the end, 19-30 even at the end of the first quarter. Leicester finding it hard to get their usual good looks, and then London had a 9-2 run to finish the half. Joshua Ward-Hibbett with the 3 to cap it off. 28-47 at halftime. It looked all over.
Yeah. And Joshua Hibbert hitting a couple of shots, which hurts Leicester, because that's he's the guy you probably want shooting them. Decker kind of just controlling the game, but more than anything, London just controlling the glass and contesting every shot, and so Leicester aren't getting the open 3-point looks that they've been getting everywhere else. And I went back and watched a bit of this again, because obviously it was Christmas and obviously the family's fed up with us by now, and they really, if you go back to the first half, Leicester hardly scored in the half court.
Yeah.
They got the odd, they got some foul shots, they got some transition, some semi-transition whereby they're throwing it up and then they've gone quite quickly. But once they got into their sets, there was very little there for them, and that was product of, I think, good game plan, good understanding, good preparation, and good discipline from the London players. Second half it changed a little bit, because London obviously down on numbers and played lots of games, but also Leicester picked the speed up.
Yeah,
did faster.
So,
as you tend to do when you're behind.
Jackson cut it to 12 early in the third quarter, and then Mackenzie had 5 points. Whelan and Ann won early in the fourth quarter, 62-68, and the crowd was up, and you were thinking, could they do this? And then they have the get out of jail free card in Sam Decker. He hits a 3. London hit the next 7 points, and he's back out to 13.
Yeah, Decker made a massive 3. I mean, that was the moment. There's moments in these games, and Leicester never quite scored with enough regularity for me to think that they were going to get over the hump. They were searching, and and as what happens when you search, Rob's rotation becomes smaller. He's playing less guys. He's trying to find out who's going to get them over the hump. Mackenzie, I thought, was excellent. But you didn't see them scoring enough, or London making enough mistakes. The only twist was when Nelson got hurt near the end. And I thought that might be one kind of blow too many. But as you say, I mean, and Decker made that big 3, 9-point game, 11-point game, 13-point game, and they could never score regularly enough in the half court. I thought Kufos was just a different level, to be honest, and for him to turn up and play that way in that game, it's little things, just the calmness and the composure that he uses. He doesn't knock anybody over. He doesn't get knocked over. He just runs down the middle. He knows where he's going. He just plays like an absolute professional, high level professional. And it's tough because everybody else in the league is 2 or 3 inches smaller than him. So he's able to do to Darren Nelson-Henry what Darren Nelson-Henry's been doing to everybody else. It was a bit of a kick in the teeth of parity, really. Yeah. I'm going to say that, bit of a kick in the teeth, because that's half London's team.
Yep.
And that's Leicester on 123 in a row on a must-win game, and it wasn't. They weren't miles apart, but it wasn't that close either.
Yeah.
Jackson
and Loving made some 3s in the last 80 seconds, but they never looked like they were going to quite get close enough. 75-79 was as close as they got with 29 seconds to go. Jackson led Leicester with 14 points, Mackenzie 13, Loving and Whelan both 12. Leicester 27 of 68 shooting, 5 of 18 from 3-point range, both lower than usual. Decker led London with 21.7 rebounds, Kufos 17 points, 14 rebounds. Nelson 5 minutes. Nelson 5 of 8 shooting, 14 points and 6. 51-37 they out rebounded Leicester. 18 offensive rebounds, 16 second chance points.
Yeah, that's a lot of second chance points as well.
It is out of 81.
Out of 18, out of 81, and that's just getting good shots and getting size and being able to finish.
Let's go to Wednesday night. Plymouth City Patriots 70, Bristol Flyers 96. Not much scoring early on. It was 11-11 after 8 minutes in this one, but Flyers with Bell scoring 7 went on a 10-2 run and opened up an 8-point lead in the game early in the second.
It was kind of a Christmas turkey first quarter, wasn't it? I'm not sure if that's what they have that Thanksgiving doing. They must have.
I think it's duck.
Whatever. It was a bit stodgy. And obviously it's a bit chippy. There's chippy players on both teams, and it's the longest derby in the history of the world. But it's that's the rivalries. So there's no harm in rivalries.
Yeah.
And it was a bit chippy all the way. But I thought Bristol out muscled Plymouth virtually the whole game. But Delpesh and Smith absolutely had their way inside during the course of this game, and they've got enough shooting and they've got enough scorers that when they're getting all those shots and when they're scoring inside as well, they become a bit tough. Plymouth look a bit short, to be honest, and they're a bit short because they're getting nothing from Simons at this point, and he's a critical piece for them. You can win games. You can win games with 6 guys for as long as you can, but eventually, you're going to need something from somebody else. And Simons has basically not made a shot since he got hurt. Realistically, LBC is not going to score 24 a game. That's not sustainable for them to win games. I thought he was a little bit more aggressive with his shot, but even in this game, not quite as aggressive as probably they needed him to be. And then, there's a risk that they wear down, Hassan with the amount of minutes he's playing, because he's basically playing the 5 spot. He's playing against bigger players every single time down. So what they ended up with was only one area of the court where they had any advantage, and that was when Antonio Williams had the ball.
Yeah. And he did most of their scoring. He did actually get them back in front 32-31, but there was so little else from the rest of the team that was always going to be their Achilles heel. And if we move into the third quarter, it's 38-44 early in the third quarter. Ollison and Miller pushed them out to a 12-4 run. They're out to 14 points, 42-56, and really from there, with only Williams in reply the other way, the league kept growing.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I say Simons is so important is because the reality is they have 3 bigs and then Keita, who plays some minutes. So they have Hassan, Hawthorne, and Bell. And PJ will only play 2 of them at any one time. So those 3 aren't playing together. Okay. Which means that what you then have is your guards of Dusha, Williams, Simons, and Brandon. Yeah. Now, again, Brandon's an up and coming player, but he's not a guaranteed 15 a game. Dusha primarily a passer. So somewhere along the line, Simons has to be the guy. Simons has to give them 20. As teams are getting better and getting stronger, and particularly when Plymouth are going to be worn down with the amount of games that they're playing, they're just a bit thin.
Yeah.
At this point in time, and they're not, they don't always, because Bell in particular as a young pro, they don't always get. They've had some great games out of Bell, but they've also had some games where he's been in foul trouble very quickly.
Yeah.
And eventually, that kind of stuff. I just thought they got worn down in this game. I thought interesting. What Leslie Smith's really interesting because he's bounced around a bit. He's from the Virgin Islands. He's a British passport player. Played in Bristol. He went to Sheffield, I think. And he was kind of a 4-man who was a bit shot happy, to be honest. He would get the ball, he'd put it up, he'd shoot the 3, he'd post up, he'd look for his shots all the time, and he's almost been reinvented as kind of the backup 5-man, whereby he just rolls, he gets to the rim, he rebounds the ball, he does exactly what the team needs, lets everybody else do the running around him, and he plays a role which he's never played before when he was in the BBL. And it's it's to his credit that he's kind of adapted to. And in this game, he dominated in the minutes that he was in. And when they've got Delpesh, who is the best offensive rebounder in the league, and has slightly underestimated finishing skills as well. If you're getting dominant performance from Smith as well, then it means all those other guys can just go off and shoot the ball wherever they want. Because they think that they know it's coming back, or they know they're getting something out. And so I mean, the best bit about this game was obviously they got a bit feisty with Samuels and Williams and and all the handbag stuff and all that stuff. But it wasn't quite close enough for it to be meaningful feisty.
No.
Obviously last year we had the Evans and the Ruckus and the going off and all that stuff. We'll keep an eye on it to see if anything like that happened. And it got a bit chippy.
But as you say,
but as I say,
it's a 4-point game. It's a different sort of chippy.
Absolutely. So it took away the jeopardy of it a little bit.
Williams at one stage looked like he was going to have half his team's points, just slightly shy of that. 31 points, 6 rebounds, 11 of 17 shooting. His 2 best scoring games in the BBL have been both at home against Bristol. Nobody else in double figures for Plymouth.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, last year Williams was basically the point guard and Dusha came off the bench and they played Williams and Simons, the two, 1 and the 2, had Joe Hart playing the 3, so they had the ability to do that with a bit more confidence. This year, LBC's played so well that they've ended up with Simons coming off the bench and Williams is playing now the two spot, which basically means he's in even more kind of attack mode. And we're seeing that around the league at the moment. I'll talk about that a little bit later in relation to the next game. These guards who are in absolutely attack mode because they're being released to score. But it does mean, though, if the balance isn't right, it can be easier for the opposition to kind of load up on them.
Bell with 17 points, 8 rebounds. Orlison, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Watson-Gale, 14.7 assists, 21 offensive rebounds, 26 second chance points, 52-27. Absolutely normalized them.
Normalized them. That wears you down. You can't. There is a tipping point, even with your hatred of offensive rebounding.
I love an offensive rebound. You give me 21 and 26 second chance points. I'd say 21 is too many, but I'll take 26 second chance points.
It's a tipping point, isn't it? And that's well over the tipping point in relation to any game.
Yeah. So let's go to the other game on Wednesday. Newcastle Eagles 94, Caledonia Gladiators 87. Another long distance rivalry. No Fraser and Onwas for Caledonia. Mockford was out for Newcastle. Ubiara, I think, was back for this game, was he?
Yeah, he played in this game. You tried the A69 in the snow, pal.
yeah, true. Gladiators 9 of the first 11 points. They led for much of the first quarter, but not by much. This was relatively
Fraser
close.
Obviously missing Fraser and Onwas, and I think Fraser was due to play. He was suited up, but it was only half an hour before the game that they found out he wasn't able to play, and he was kind of limping across the court. Didn't really look that good. So in theory, that's a real opportunity for Newcastle. It's home game against a team that's not far above them. And it's something you've got to be looking at. And I thought Newcastle started awfully. I thought Caledonia started well, but the reason primarily because Jeremiah Bailey basically destroyed Donovan Johnson and was able to score at will in the first few minutes, to the point whereby Mark had to take Johnson out and put Darius in after about 3 minutes. And the French Defoe lineup is kind of a little bit. It's not conventional.
No,
it's two big bodies, but it does give them certain levels of experience, ability, athleticism, etc. So, basically, Newcastle's defense in the first quarter, and even, to be honest, for most of the first half was pretty poor, but I don't think it was all of them. I do think there was just a couple of holes that Caledonia exploited. In the meantime, however, at the other end, Hamlet was doing a Antonio Williams, insofar as he was basically keeping the Eagles in the game because he was the only one who was showing the capability to score the ball. And it's interesting what's happened with the Eagles as well, because it's similar a little bit to Antonio Williams at Plymouth and to David Sloan in Caledonia. These guys have been signed out of college as point guards, right? And the coaches have had a look at them and thought, actually, I just want you to score.
Yeah.
We just thought, I don't need you to think of anything else. So now, obviously that started early with Newcastle when they brought Cohen in after 3 weeks, after pre-season, saying that they obviously formed that view. But they even went a little bit further in this game because Kennedy was effectively the backup point guard in this game. Hamlet was basically not bringing the basketball up the court much at all. I think probably in an attempt to clear his mind. Just to say, you're going to score. Don't worry about running the team. Don't worry about anything else. He's going to score. In the first half, he just went and scored. Scored which way. And he had 24 at half time or something like that. Something ridiculous. The Eagles only had 42. And notwithstanding that, you really couldn't see Newcastle getting enough stops. And I think it was partly Caledonia's roster issues.
Yeah.
Running out of gas. And also, to be fair, Newcastle actually in the third quarter began to exploit those weaknesses in a more intelligent way than they've shown the capability of doing so far this season.
So Gladiators got out to 12 mid-second quarter. They were still up 12 at halftime, 42-54. Tape then got his fourth foul early in the third quarter, and that he fouled out a minute into the fourth quarter, so he basically didn't play in the second half. And with Defoe scoring, Kennedy hit a couple of threes. Eagles went from 58-65 down to 75-68 up early in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and Gareth was stuck because Gareth was having to decide how to stick the twist because he had Tappy in foul trouble. So he brought him back at the beginning of the fourth quarter because Defoe had basically Bailey had gone and guarded Defoe, and Darius wasn't having that. And took him to walked him to 2 feet from the rim and dropped one in, and then made a turnaround jump shot and then Baldwin came on to guard Defoe, and Darius wasn't having that either. So he had to bring Tappy back in because Eagles were exploiting that. Darius was having one of his games. But the problem was Tappy doesn't have that Kufos calmness about him because Tappy caught the ball on the short roll a minute into the fourth quarter, and basically Cohen, who does this very well actually, slid in front, stood there, got nailed on the offensive foul, fouled out Tappy, probably the biggest player of the whole game. Actually, Cohen doing that. And that then left Gareth with the difficult situation of, you had to go with either Oscar Baldwin, and Oscar Baldwin isn't at this point quite ready to be playing big minutes in Newcastle beat Caledonia, down the stretch. He's their third choice centre. That's what he is. He struggled to defend without fouling, which allowed Hamlet to get to the line and Darius to get to the line. So then Gareth, he's already tried Bailey, and Bailey can't really guard Defoe. So he actually went to a zone about halfway through the fourth quarter, which I thought was really quite smart, and that really helped them a little bit. But more than anything, the Eagles discovered just enough, just a combination of players who was just enough, just gritty enough, to get through and making shots. Kyle Johnson, I know Kyle Johnson had been in early, it hurt his hamstring, so he came out, but he brought him back with 3 minutes, so he made a tough shot from the corner. And, and they show the semblance of a workable BBL basketball team. Now, I'm not sure if they'd won the game without Fraser, if Fraser had been playing.
Yeah.
But you can take us through it. But basically, what happened was Darius took them into the lead, then Caledonia kind of kept coming back.
So it was 75-68. Bailey then 7 points, and with 2:46 to go, Sloan one makes it 83-81. Kyle Johnson hits a three. Bailey misses a three. 1:55 to go. Cohen is fouled, makes one of two from the free throw line, 87-81. Bailey misses another three. Baldwin fouls on the rebound. Defoe goes 1 for 2. There's 1:38 to go. It's 88-81. The game is basically over. You can't even get close from here. And then suddenly Burns hits a three. Bailey they force a turnover, and Bailey hits a transition three, and bang bang. In the space of 15 seconds, it goes from 7 points to 1 point, 88-87.
Yeah, went out the building a bit. They are a very spurtable team. And basically they were playing through three guys at the end, which was Bailey, Sloan, and Burns. And I don't think Newcastle did a particularly good job of reacting to that. And particularly Bailey was getting whatever shots he wanted all night. He just started missing because he was tired. Eagles had to take Kyle Johnson out again. Just before that, just at that 1:38 mark, he came out. Again, he didn't play tonight, so I understand, tight hamstring, something like that. And that meant that Kennedy came in, but that changed up their matchup. So Cohen ends up guarding Fraser Malcolm on the wing, and Kennedy ends up guarding Burns. And Burns, seeing a bigger guy on him, does what most guards do, which is step forward, step back, and shoot it. Made a tough three. Then Hamlet Hamlet turned the ball over, or someone tipped it away or nudged him or whatever. And then Bailey just made a cold-hearted three.
Yeah, it was.
Absolutely. He stared. Darius was in front of him. He stared him down, pulled up on the fast break. 26 feet. He just missed three in a row. Just boom, bang, no doubt, and game on. But I think Newcastle just invested a little bit too much in this game to lose it. And it was one of those BBL games whereby you kind of got the impression the home team was going to carry it through.
Well, Defoe with a very customary 15-footer on the baseline, puts them back 90-87, and then pretty much the decisive play. Sloan trying to get it to Bailey. It wasn't a great pass, if truth be told. They were maybe a little close to each other. Goes out of bounds with 26.6, and that was basically it. They didn't help themselves by not fouling.
Right. I mean,
Gareth screaming for a foul and nobody fouled.
That turnover was right in front of me. Yeah. It's like, I never moved a muscle. No, and then absolutely. I mean, this is what gets me. These are pro players. They've been through college for 4 years. They've played in other countries. Jordan Burns just has to know. He has to look up the clock. It says 26. There's a 24-second shot clock. You're down by 3. What are you, and you're standing there letting him dribble the ball. At one point, I was worried that Hamlet was going to get called for a 5-second call. Because Burns is just standing there, and I think, and Hamlet's not knowing what's going on. And Gareth obviously has got a language difficulty problem. I mean, it might be that obviously he can't read his lips because of the beard. So that beard might be the first instance of the beard actually being a poor coaching maneuver, because he's got the Scottish accent, he's got the noise around him, and he's got the beard stopping the lip reading. So no, what Burns was doing, I don't know. And nobody else, to be fair, it's not just Burns, because the rest of the team, the rest of the team, someone's got to have some form of nous about them. These are professional players, and to not know that's a foul situation is nonsense. And this is why it kind of grates me at times when people say, "Oh well, the refs were rubbish," or "Our team, oh this was rubbish," or that was rubbish." It's like, come on, there's some basic stuff, to use a word begin with S, that players just have to get. And they lost that game because ultimately they spent they lost any chance of winning that game because ultimately they spent 20 seconds waiting to decide to foul the best foul shooter in the league.
19 seconds.
19 seconds. I was happy. I was ticking them down. And Javion hasn't missed a foul shot in about a month. 15 of 15. And never going to miss. Game is done.
That was the game. Hamlet, as you say, 15 of 15 from the free throw line, which is the most without a miss in the era that I can count. Ties Brad Wisbicki of Leicester, 15 of 15 as well.
Did Brad meet them at John Sanford?
I think that game was at John Sanford. I'd have to double check it.
Well, you should get an extra point.
but not hitting the roof.
But not in the roof, exactly. Let's have the magnets on that game.
He was 9 of 16 shooting from the floor, 34 points and 6 assists. Defoe 9 of 14 shooting from the floor for 20 points and 6 rebounds. Donovan Johnson with 11. Bailey 9 of 18 shooting, 29 points, 10 rebounds. Sloan 7 of 24. 19.6 rebounds, 5 assists, and Burns had 12.
I mean it's kind of interesting with narratives. Firstly, the best, the most capable guy the Eagles had to guard Bailey was Defoe, which is nuts. He's technically a 38-year-old backup 5, and he's guarding the best. He's guarding the wing, and he guarded him better than any of the other Newcastle players. And that's just having been around and understanding the game. It's not a physical thing. It's a capability, it's a mental capability thing. And whilst Hamlet's scored all the points and kept them in the first game, Defoe was an MVP by a mile in this game, because of what he gave them offensively and defensively. Secondly, we're beginning to see, something of a special guy, a special player in Hamlet, now that there's certain things being removed from his plate. And just like we did with Sloan in October, when Sloan broke out, and we thought, wow, he's a player. I think, you could see it in the way that he carried himself in the game, the way that he moved, the confidence he was with, the confidence he was playing with. You could see it's kind of it's tangible, really. It's intangible, but it's tangible if you look at the way the guys carry themselves, just the way he was moving and the way he was handling himself. It's like, okay, I got this. I know where I'm at. And that festers, that borders well for Newcastle. But that said, it's not a game whereby they can get the bunting out, because, at the end of the day, there's Caledonia missing 2 starters. They still ended up down 15 in the first quarter, which is unacceptable. And they still got some holes. They're getting little production out of either Everett or Donovan Johnson, and those 2 guys are at the moment hurting them. They've got to step up and get something from them, because they're Americans, and at the moment they're not going to get that much. They're not going to get 20 a game from Darius every game.
No.
They need 20 a game from Darius every game in 20 odd minutes. then they're going to struggle. So some of these guys, are going to have to step up, and kind of finish off the team. But the Newcastle looking better. Caledonia, I think, will be fine. They've got a bit of push me pull you with Bailey and Sloan. Bailey's clearly the guy. Certainly in his own mind, he's the guy. He's willing to, be a direct impactor on games. Sloan was a little bit. Newcastle only turned the ball over 9 times in this game, which kept Sloan out of transition, which really helped them. And he was a little bit. He shot 24 times, but I didn't remember him shooting 24 shots. Watching the game, I look back and said, he really shot 24 shots, 7 of 24. And it's like, okay, he's gonna have to just kind of find his click again as well. But competitive game. It's fun to watch.
Let's go to Thursday. I say this like anybody has any idea what day of the week it is. It's that time of year, isn't it? Sheffield Sharks 73, Cheshire Phoenix 88. Nelson back for Sheffield, but Glasgow out. Anderson back for Cheshire. Flurry of threes at the start of this game. I thought I was watching a different game here. I didn't realise it was a Sheffield game at first with all the 3-pointers going in.
Yeah, well, they went away a little bit from their kind of inside movement early, almost as if they were trying to get a bit more flow. They didn't have Glasgow playing, which makes them again horrendous. Nelson's first game back, so again it gives them a horrendous depth issue in the backcourt because you have Glasgow, then you have Banks, who's basically a 2-3 or a 3-2 really in his game in the BBL, and all you've got after that is Montgomery, who doesn't play much, and Sacco, who isn't really a guard either in the BBL. He's body shape of a guard, but he plays like a kind of athletic small forward. And so they I think they did try to pick up the pace a little bit, but the pace of the game from memory was always kind of in Cheshire's favour. I didn't think there was a time during this game where Sheffield were going to win it.
No. I was watching it. I don't think I watched this live. No, I didn't. I was at my brother-in-law's. I watched this game back, and even knowing what the outcome was, the game made me think that was going to be the outcome as well, without even if I hadn't known it. Knicks had a spell 13-4 around the first quarter break, got it out to 22-30. Sharks did level the game at 30, but they just didn't have enough scoring. They were just 73 points at home.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing, there was a couple of, I'm using this word interesting a lot today, so I'm sorry for those of us. I will borrow my son's thesaurus for next week. The fascinating thing about Cheshire is that firstly, they played 10 players. Secondly, they start with this 5-out lineup now with Teague and Neighbour in the 4 and 5. It's basically just space the court. You stand on that spot, that spot, that spot, that spot, and that spot. Occasionally Neighbour or Teague might drop themselves into the post, but it doesn't happen very often. And therefore they stretch you out as much as they can. Then they come in and they bring in Otsarobia or Ulf to kind of, bulldoze a few offensive rebounds as well. And it's kind of a lineup which works, or it's working to a certain degree. I think there's a danger at times that some of the players are out to get out a little bit early, and they've got so many that they get a little bit cold. But they got good minutes from Jack in this game. He is shooting 42% from 3, and he's a really capable finisher, and he got out in transition. Sheffield really didn't get that much in transition. It took Nelson a while to get attuned to the game, with it being his first game back. And Cheshire just kind of slowly stepped on the glass and made enough shots.
And it was pretty comfortable for them in the second half. Really, it didn't.
Well, the biggest thing I note is that I checked on the stats afterwards. Rotino's numbers are way down this year. Rotino's averaging 7 a game this year. Last year he was at like 11 a game. His percentages are down. In this game, he made 2 shots, both in the last 2 minutes when they were down by 20. And that's not a direct result of him not trying because he's still playing the minutes, or he's still playing. It's a direct result of the quality of the looks that he's able to get. And the reason he's not able to get much in the way of quality is because, Sheffield are primarily an outside team, but it doesn't go, when it goes inside, it doesn't come outside much. The ball goes in, and Bennett Cook is looking to score, and Oganyemi is looking to score, and Delpesh is looking to score. So then, where's your wing guy going to get his shots from? Where's he going to get his shots from transition? Well, they're not in transition. They don't run. Right, so he's not getting those shots. So then, where's he going to get his shots from? He's going to get his shots from a spaced floor, dribble penetration, the ball rotated around. Well, without Nelson, there's none of that. Even with Nelson, there's not as much of that as they would probably like because they're so inside dominant. So whilst you have one guy like Cook who's having a career year and really at times showing that he's unguardable down in the block, the knock-on effect of that is that you have another guy who's having a down year because he's not in a position, he's not being put in a position by the offense which necessarily suits him. And it's that push me pull you all the time in coaching. You know, where do I go? How do I get this guy going at the same time as getting this guy going to the point whereby we're going to maximize our production? And that's it's why it's an art and not a science. It's hard. But they've had 3 seasons now. Sheffield, they went 0-4, they went 7-2, and then they went 0-5.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you can go 0-4 at the beginning and say, okay, we'll see how it pans out. You cannot really go 0-5 in the middle.
No.
Because that's getting you towards that kind of spiral, which, as we know, is not good.
We haven't got the spiral.
We're in the spiral. We haven't had a spiral watch yet, but it's January, so you can't spiral until you're halfway into the season. So we're in the kind of spiral watch already.
Sheffield have played 18 games, so they are halfway into the season.
And it's been a weird 18 games, you know, because they've been up and down, and they beat London.
Yeah,
you know, you beat a better London team than Leicester played. You know, London had more talent on the court. So, you know, I would be surprised if they didn't make a change or two. I don't think they can continue with the stretch that what they're going to with Nelson and Glasgow being their only 2 guards. I think they need something. They need something else in relation to shot creation.
Well, they've got a massive gap now. Now would be the time to do it if they were, because they don't. I think it's something like the 20th of January before they play. Now there is a trophy game to be scheduled, which will probably be somewhere in that gap. It's against Thames Valley away, but they've got a big window of time here before their next game.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the thing. You know, this is the thing. You know, people can get a little bit teary-eyed about, you know, favorite players and players changing, but it's a real aspect of the season. You know, in the BBL, it's tough. You know, it's a real aspect of kind
we
of
saw
mid-level
last year
professional basketball.
What they can, what you can do.
What you can pick up. I mean, last year they picked up Wallace and Twain Johnson, and and suddenly they win a ton of close games and finish second. So they've got some thinking to do. I think. I don't think what they've necessarily got is going to propel them. They're going to win games because they're good. They've got talented basketball players on that team, but I don't think the combination is quite right the way that the rest of the league is shaping. Cheshire, they've got their 10-man roster now. They got, you know, Hudson and Ulf in there. They've got most bases covered, and you know, if Will Neighbour makes shots for them, they're really tough.
Nelson, 5 of 14 shooting, 21 points and 8 rebounds in his first game back. Nichols, 17 and 6, Banks 11. Sheffield shot 39% field goal, 35% from 3-point range. The combined index, which is a stat that doesn't really mean anything, but it was noticeable that it was 72 to 112. Yeah.
Ouch.
Austin, 16 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Jack, 18 points. Teague, 13 points. They were 11 of 26 from 3-point range.
Yeah, they've got bigs who can shoot, and bigs who can shoot up in the court. You know, it makes a big difference.
Let's go to Friday, and we'll start with the most bonkers game of the week. Cheshire Phoenix 103, Manchester Giants 99. Neighbour, Teague, Austin hitting threes to start the game. Cheshire out 15-4 and cruising. And then second quarter, Neighbour 10 in a row, hit a couple of threes, some nice hooks in the key, and 21 points. And Neighbour's 8 for 9 for 19 points in 12 minutes. And it's just an absolute riot by Cheshire in the first half.
Yeah, BBL scheduling situation. Because they've played the night before, so they've had the ball in their hands and they've had the shots and they're in a rhythm and it's good. Now, obviously, when they're comfortable in the first half, they get tired in the second half because their legs aren't what they were because they played the night before. So it's a balance. You throw that into the fact that Manchester haven't played. Manchester's defense is not something which shows much signs of improving in any event. So their kind of rhythm offensively was off, and then they played like they didn't know what a scouting report was in relation to Will Neighbour, who basically was able to pick them apart and make shots, and Taj Teague, and you know, Manchester were just they were there in body, but they weren't there in spirit. And Cheshire were comfortable because they'd been playing and it was a local derby and they were flying. It was a full crowd, etc. But obviously legs tire, and Manchester, what they are, where they are deficient defensively, they are the opposite offensively. Offensively they're a force because everybody produces. They rebound the heck out of the ball at the other end, even when they miss, and they've got shot makers, to use a phrase. But even notwithstanding that, Cheshire held them at arm's length for 38.5 minutes, basically.
Yeah. So let me just run us through to that point. By the way, 6 of 15 from 3-point range, 63% field goal shooting in the first half. Cheshire, Manchester were 39%, 18%, and 53% as their shooting splits. Lead peaked at 68-41 early in the third quarter. They did cut it a bit, but as you say, it still looked comfortable. 1:15 to go. They're still up 10. Dirk hits a three. It's 92-80. 5, but Jamel Anderson replies 95-85, and you're thinking, well, this game is basically over. Dirk again just towed the line, a long two in transition, 95-87, and only if you do dumb things here can you allow the other team back into it. But Austin
tried.
Austin drove to the basket when he needed to run the clock, and he ended up turning the ball over.
Yeah, that was nuts. And I think Fletcher made a three on the other side.
He did. Fletcher comes down and makes a three. So they've gone from 10 up to 5 up in the space of 15 seconds.
Yeah, and you're still one screw up away, but even so, you've given them a chance. And the problem is at this point, Manchester are just kind of flying because they're playing, to use a phrase, with house money. The chip, they've got, it doesn't matter. They're down by 27. If they come back and win it, fantastic. If they don't. They don't. And Cheshire are getting tired, and mentally they're getting a little bit tired as well because they only played 8 in this game. They didn't play the 10. So the bodies are a little bit tired, the minds are a little bit tired, and Manchester have all these shot makers.
They didn't have enough fouls though, so they had to commit 3 fouls, lost 5 seconds in doing that. But then Daniels makes 2 free throws, 97-90. Timeout, advance the ball. Should be the game. Dirk loses it out of bounds, but it's still a Giants possession with 28.6 seconds to go. He misses a 3. Manchester scramble a rebound. Robertson scores 97-92. And then Austin makes 2 free throws, 19.7 seconds to go, 99-92. Timeout, advance the ball. Green hits a 3.
Yeah.
And it's 99-95. And this time Austin did a good job, and he ran a few seconds off the clock before the foul came, 101-95. And then Dirk banks in a 3, and it's a 3-point game, but they're running out of time. It can only be missing free throws, and then Austin misses one.
Just on all this is even Manchester making some quote marks, crazy shots. That's still on Cheshire, right? If you're up 7 with 30 seconds to go or 20 seconds to go, the only thing you're doing is taking away the 3-point line. You're not fouling, and you're not giving up threes, okay? Because 3s get you back in the game a lot quicker than 2s do.
Yeah.
A 2 is just swapping the 2 for 2 foul shots. A 3, you're up a point, you might be up 2 points, you might even be up 3 points if they miss the 2 foul shots, right? So you take away the 3-point shot, and you rather hope that that Manchester are so desperate to make a 3 that they chuck up a desperate one. Now, how do you take away the 3-point shot? You actually literally guard them out there on their side on the 3-point line. You take a different position physically to what you would do normally when you're just trying to keep somebody from getting into the lane and you challenge them to shoot over the top. You literally give them a situation where all they can do is dribble inside the arc. And I don't think Cheshire did that very well. And so, and Dirk makes shots and Taj Green makes that shot because they're no pressure shots. It doesn't matter if they miss. That's why they make them.
So 3.7 seconds to go. Austin is fouled. He gets 1 of 2 from the line, makes it a 4-point game. And then Anderson commits a foul, and they were even discussing, I think, whether it could have been unsportsmanlike.
Well, this is 3 weeks ago I said basically it was impossible to lose a game from 4 points up with 4 seconds to go, right? And that very same week, Real Madrid managed to throw away a EuroLeague game by committing a foul and a 3-point shot in exactly that situation. Eddie Tavares and the Greek team made a 4-point play and tied it and won in overtime. But I thought, well, that's never going to happen again. Right. Well, I have no clue what Jamal Anderson was doing. None. You freeze frame that. That was a 1-shot foul. No question. The ball had not left the hands of the passer in when when Williams is circling in front of Anderson.
So you think they would, because the referees obviously were talking, you think they were talking about whether the foul was before the ball was inbounded rather than whether it was no play on the ball?
I think it was.
Yeah.
There can't have been a play on the ball because the ball was nowhere near him and it was a grab. But I don't think it was a pull, a shirt pull. So I don't think it would qualify as non-sportsmanlike off the ball. But when I rewound it, and obviously it's the advantage of YouTube, the advantage of that we do that, but the refs can't, looked at it straight away. The grab was well before the ball came in bounds. And refs blew the call, unfortunately. But what Anderson is doing is beyond me. Now, he's one of the smarter players in the league, right? And for him to do anything when you're up 4 and the ball's at the other end of the court, to go anywhere near Dirk Williams, 84 feet away is nuts. To
you
put
just
your
let
hand
them
out,
catch the ball, dribble it down. If he makes it,
sure, by the time the shot goes in, the game's over.
Yeah.
So they absolutely caught a break with that. You know, it's another reason we need video review for that type of thing. The 1-shot foul was the ball. It's a question of fact. It's not a question of opinion.
Yeah.
And they got it wrong. And I mean, Manchester did not deserve to win the game. They made a ton of crazy shots in 2 minutes. You know, they showed a dilettante attitude to defense for 35 minutes. But you know, basketball's who has the most points at the end.
It is, yeah.
And they had a chance. 1 shot, make a foul shot, and then 2 for 3, and game on. You know, so
which they attempted to do. Dirk made the first, tried to throw the second one off the front ring and get an offensive rebound, but Anderson got to it first. And
this is right again. It's Jamal, Jamal doing something like that. Then you've got Jordan Burns not fouling at Newcastle. It's like this is brain freeze stuff. It shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening.
Neighbour then with just 2 points in the second half after his 19 first half points. He had 21 and 6. Austin had 20.6 of 9 shooting, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Teague had 18, 5 and 5 as well. They were 10 of 36 for 3 to go with their 11 of 26 the night before. Dirk Williams had 32 points, 11 of 21 shooting, 5 of 8 from 3. Green, 9 of 16 for 24 points and 15 rebounds. Robertson also had 15 rebounds. He had 14 points, 19 of 30 from the free throw line in a 4-point game.
Yeah, but also the 95-point rule kicked in.
Yeah. Right, let's go to the Copper Box. London Lions 87, Plymouth City Patriots 63. Caboza was back for a London.
Where's he been? I mean,
he's been injured.
Do we know what? I mean,
I did know what, but I've forgotten what it is.
Oh, lay off.
So I had heard. Kufos inside, Taylor Nelson outside, quickly out to a 18-7 lead. They then had an 11-1 run around the first quarter, and it's 31-14, and that was...
Feels like every BBL home game we've talked about for London for the past 6 weeks. This one was actually even probably a little bit even less interesting. Because PJ knew it as well. So once the London starting 5 did their job, you then basically have London playing numbers 12 through 16 on the roster for a significant amount of minutes and holding serve. They're not playing particularly well with those guys, but not losing a tremendous amount of traction either. You have a slightly tired looking Plymouth group. Again, Simon's not getting much, and you've got a massive size mismatch at the far end with Kufos and Sharma, and Comigan played in this game, and Decker, who I think only played 12 minutes. That was the level of it. Those guys, and you look at them in the matching up against, Hassan 6'6", Kufos 7 foot, Bell 6'7". Decker's a wing, he's 6'9", and PJ saw what was coming. He wasn't going to burn Rashad Hassan out running down 40 minutes against that team. He played 30 minutes as well. PJ gave Sam Cater significant minutes in the second half, which will do him good. And hopefully he was playing the long game in relation to, developing him so they can get something out of him later in the season. Antonio Williams used it as an opportunity to ask for a job. You know, go there, dunk on people, make shots, make plays, talk to everybody, all of this stuff, you know, make sure he was known. So he dropped another 30 and good for him, you know, he showed some competitive spirit there. But overall, no jeopardy in this game at all.
No.
Both teams knew after the first 8 minutes, both teams knew exactly what was going to happen. It was a question of the coaches managing their rosters for future time, future minutes down the line. And it's that type of win, that type of utterly routine win, which is the kind of the tent peg of the team that wins the league every year. You know, if you're beating teams routinely, when you know you're beating them and the game's done after 15 minutes and you're up by 20, even if it comes back a bit, it goes out a bit, comes back a bit. You know, that's how you win leagues, because those wins just add up without people even feeling that they were wins. You know, and when you're 3 wins ahead at Christmas already, you know, it's a pretty
sizable advantage.
Sizable advantage.
It's 3 losses rather than
3 losses, beg your pardon.
Yeah. Nelson 19 points and 7 rebounds. Kufos 16 and 10. Comigan and Caboza both had 9. Williams 26 points, 10 of 14 shooting, and Dusha had 13. So let's go to the Morningside Arena. Leicester Riders 77, Surrey Scorchers 72. Derek Thornton apparently missed practice the day before, I've been told, which is why Mackenzie was inserted into the starting lineup. Leicester with a 7-3 start, Surrey 7-0 back, 7-10, and Whelan Mackenzie loving threes. Leicester out 25-17, but this was just a little back and forth in the first quarter.
No, I'm intrigued by that because having watched them on the Monday and on the Tuesday night against London, my initial thought was that they would change anyway. Because Mackenzie was basically playing all the minutes that mattered in the London game, and there's only so kind of long you can go with your best in your own mind with your best point guard not starting. You know, there's difference if it's borderline, if you're getting different things out of different players, but you know, I thought they might do that anyway. They're still not quite right, and you can see that that Rob is struggling with some of them, with trusting some of them at playing in the big minutes in games, because there was some noticeable like twinges to their rotation in the second half of this game when things weren't going particularly well.
Also, the 4th game in 9 days, as
you said,
around Christmas as well, so it's harder to. I think they had 2 days off at Christmas because of Christmas, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that, but if you're coaching and you get to that point in the third quarter whereby, and we'll get to it in a minute, whereby you know, it's on the line and your team's not where it needs to be, and you're down by 8 against a Surrey team you've not lost since like
10 years.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, you know, Queen Victoria, let alone Queen Elizabeth. You know, then you have to suddenly make decisions, and so you know the decisions that were made in the third quarter were, you know, Thornton isn't going to play, might be ill, that might be why he missed practice. He played 6 minutes in the first half, got 2 fouls, he was minus 15 till he came back in. Then when Nelson Henry got into foul trouble, it wasn't Menzies that came off the bench, it was Adekoya. You know, and it was there was very limited involvement of both Walsh and Bowman. So your roster is shrinking a little bit, you know, in relation to the guys that you trust when the game is on the line. But the guys that you trust are the ones that are going to win the games for you. So there's a reason for that. Now, Surrey, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, you know, they have the makings of a team, and they benefited again from having some illnesses and injuries because Lawrence was healthy, Bazumbri wasn't playing, so there was no minutes for him, which meant that basically the backcourt rotation sorted itself out. There's no Bazumbri, there's no Jefferson, so no Jalen Ray. So you've got Lawrence and Quincy Taylor playing together, and that also gave Paddy Wang an opportunity to have the basketball in his hands, and Paddy Wang in the first half was exceptional.
Yeah, he was
great. The rim, tacked the rim. He had a step on all the Leicester players. Again, 4th game in 9 days for them, so maybe they're a little bit of a step slow, and they're coming against a team who's emotionally on the upswing. They haven't won a game yet, but they're emotionally on the upswing.
It was coming though, wasn't it?
It was coming.
It was one of them where, watching today's game, I said they're going to win this game because they always win on New Year's Day, and because they didn't win on Thursday. I think if they'd won on Thursday, they might not have won today because
it's a climb up the mountain, isn't it? And you're getting to a certain point whereby the improvements turn into wins, and you've got to get to that point. But that also is an emotional thing because it puts you emotionally on an upswing as well. Emotionally, you think, well, actually, we're in this. Actually, we're in it. Actually, we've got a shot at this. And what you actually have the benefit of is a little bit like Plymouth last year. It's almost like it's a new season.
Yeah, yeah.
So your January and February becomes everybody else's October and November,
Yeah.
and you're coming across teams that may be a little bit more impacted by the fact that they've been together for a while. January and February are always the dog days for people.
Yeah.
Because you know what you are, you know what your team is. The players are beginning to start thinking about what's happening next year. It's cold, they're away from home, and there's no real end in sight, So it's a dog. Whereas for Surrey and probably for Newcastle as well, they're not quite at that point because they've been so bad early on that then the players are actually sitting an upswing. So Wang was really good, and I thought the reason that Surrey lost and Leicester won is because Leicester firstly had slightly better players in key positions, and basically, as I say, Rob didn't mess around in trying to make sure everybody was contributing. He went straight to the players that he wanted on the court, and Mark Loving in particular took over the game. Also, Surrey, they went through some spells of just bad play. I'm afraid, when they're up 6 or up 8, just bad decision making. There was one time that Paddy Wang threw the ball to Andrew Lawrence on the wing, and Andrew Lawrence just threw it back to him. I think they were about up 8 in the third quarter. He threw it back to him. It's almost like saying, "Oh, you go to work, you're doing your job, you go to work." And then Paddy Wang looks up and you got Ryan Martin posted up in the mid post. Now Ryan Martin's not made a shot all night, and he's posted up, taking away all the Paddy Wang space. So all Paddy Wang can do is throw the ball to Ryan Martin. Ryan Martin takes 2 steps backwards and travels. And then there were multiple possessions like that, which you just regard as bad offensive possessions, which you cannot have against Leicester. And eventually, and just kind of push me, pull you. Who's got the ball? Who's going to make a play? It's Ryan Martin saying, "I need to make a play because I haven't made a play yet. I'm going to score on this guy." It's Andrew Lawrence saying, "Paddy Wang, you're 8 of 9 from the field. They can't guard you. Go and attack." And it's those little things that the teams have to kind of figure out for themselves. Whilst they're losing, and when they figured it out, that's when they start winning.
Yeah. So Scorchers had a 19-2 run around the first quarter break. They were 27-36 ahead, but as you say, Leicester just chipping away, got it back level in the third quarter at 53 on a Washington 3-pointer with 12 minutes to go. Loving and Jackson pushed Leicester out to a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter. Wang got it back to 2. Loving 5 quick points back to 71-64. And that was kind of the story of the last 5 minutes. Surrey almost getting back, Leicester making a play when they needed them, and Ryan Martin missing a 3 when Surrey needed
he
it
shot
to go in.
He shot a lot of threes. It's tough. Some of them are open, and he's a shooter. He's shooting 40-odd%. I don't think all of them were open. I think he chased it a little bit. I thought he was a little bit like a gambler at Vegas. Kept the next one's going. I'm going to get the next one. I'm going to get the next one. And I thought that hurt them. But then again, you look at on the bench, what's Lloyd got on the bench to go to? He's got Charleston Dobbs, who played 11 minutes, he was minus 16. And that's basically his only option. When Tail comes back, I'm sure Tail will be slipping in there, and Tail will be shooting those shots, So, whilst, it's not really a player when he's on the court has to play, right? If the coach doesn't like what's going on, the coach can take him out. But if the coach isn't taking him out, if he's over 9 or over 15 or whatever, and, Josh Steele said afterwards on Twitter, winning the best teammate of the year award, saying, "Oh, well, it don't matter if he gets another 9 shots tomorrow. I want him to shoot them because he's been shooting the ball well." I just think that he pushed it up. And I do wonder why they don't play a little bit of him at the 5. I really do. I just don't get the. It's always either Johnson or Jack Donby, and there are times I think he could, do like what Dan Clark did for Lloyd at Manchester last year and really open up the floor by playing him at the 5. But they don't, for whatever reason, and I don't know what it is. It might be internal. They just don't want to do that.
He just claimed that he was 0 of 9 from 3. He was 2 of 13 overall, and he didn't actually shoot the ball very well today either. To be fair. But that was it. They if he knocks down 1 or 2 of them at the end, then it's potentially Surrey could win the game. But
at any point, because the longer they stay close, the longer they stay ahead, the better chance they've got. The reality is in a game like that, Surrey is not coming from behind to win that game. If they stay ahead, they've got a shot.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I forgot when I was mentioning about Leicester was that Rob trusted Connor in the game. Connor's not fully healthy, but he was playing at the end. He was playing for much of the fourth quarter because he trusted him to play. you know. So that's what I'm talking about with your trusting your core and all of that stuff. Yeah, it's intriguing. It's all intriguing stuff. I mean, Surrey's the most interesting team in the league to watch at the moment.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
you know, no question, because there's just so many pieces and there is so much that is potentially there, and there are so many options.
It's still, to me, it's like they're going to go on a run, but the problem is when they go on a run, that's probably going to coincide with the other guys coming back from injury.
Yeah,
and how does that then impact on everything
absolutely.
else?
Yeah, I mean, you know, everyone's saying, oh, they get Taylor, they get Josh Steele, they get Jalen Ray back, they'll be great. I'm like, there's only 5 guys playing, there's only one ball.
Yeah. Well,
You
for
know,
starters, who are the 3 players that are good? They've got 12 on the roster. Who are the 3 players you're taking out? Presumably the young kid, but then you've got Wanless. Basumbaru's obviously injured at the minute.
Yeah.
Who are you taking out?
You know, there's somebody sent us a quote on, I think it might have been on Twitter. I saw it. Something to saying it from Jerry Tarkanian, ex Running Rebels head coach, which is, you know, what you need is to win is the 8 top quality players and 4 top quality cheerers.
Yeah.
Which, you know, the best cheerers in the world, which is a bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, I mean, you can't, you know, you're not going to win.
There's still only 200 minutes. If you add another 3 players, you've got 15 players to find 300 minutes.
And you can't find 11. You know, 10 is too many.
Yeah.
Really. You know, so it becomes a test. So that's why they're interesting at the moment.
But with talent, that's the thing. Is like there's talented players as well.
And it's nice because it's nice from that perspective, because for the first year and then in many there isn't a whipping boy in the league.
Yeah.
There isn't a team you think you're gonna, oh well, but this team's a guaranteed W.
Yeah.
You know, and Surrey should absolutely be thinking about making the playoffs.
Yeah. I think anybody who's already played multiple times against Surrey will be pleased with that. Leicester, I think, have played them 3 times now. I think they'll be well happy to have put 3 games on before they turn the corner.
Yeah.
So Loving and Jackson had near identical stat lines, both 8 of 15 from field goals, 2 of 7 from 3. The only difference was one was 4 of 4 from the line and the other was 2 of 3 from the line. So that is why Loving had 22 points and 7 rebounds and Jackson had 20 points and 7 rebounds. Mackenzie's 12 points and 7 assists. Wang with 24 points and 6 rebounds. Taylor 18. Jack Domney 12 points and 11 rebounds. So let's go to today's games. And Surrey, it's New Year's Day. Of course, Surrey win. Surrey always win on New Year's Day. Surrey Scorchers 78, Bristol Flyers 73. It was pretty tight early on. Jack Domney and Wang getting to the basket gave Surrey an 11-2 run and a 20-14 lead.
Yeah. Bristol started with King at the 4 and Bell on the bench. Watson Gale was the point guard. Obviously, last time they played at Surrey, which seems in my mind to have been about 3 days ago.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Watson Gale went off and made like 5 or 6 threes, so I think they were a little bit more diligent with him. The game in I thought the first quarter was a bit drunk. It's just there's a bit bobbly, and there wasn't a tremendous amount of offensive execution. Bristol don't give you a tremendous amount of offensive execution anyway; they just attack. But Wang has got a confidence about him. I think I would put it down almost exclusively to playing with Lawrence. I just see just the little things that Lawrence does, the dribble handoffs, the manipulation of the team. I think that kind of leadership is really worked with Wang. I think he's in his ear. My impression is he's in his ear, and he realizes how good he could be. They have with Quincy. Quincy is a point guard who really doesn't assist much, but he's a bucket. He just finds a way to score when his team needs a basket, and therefore they kind of avoid the droughts that they've had. And Lloyd's really shortened his rotation, which is what you do. Which means that I see no Bazumbrou, Dobbs is hardly playing. Kyle Carey's playing a little bit, depending on how impactful he is. But the rest of it it's basically 4 guys, and then he's splitting the minutes at centre between Jack Domney and Johnson. And that is absolutely an opportunity, a kind of a roadmap to being competitive in games, because these guys get used to playing with each other. The responsibility is on them. It's not like they miss a shot and they're coming out. So the coach is building trust with them, and they know that they can't complain if they lose. So it's on them. They're the ones who are playing. They're not getting messed around for minutes. And I think that's built a lot of confidence with them. Bristol, you can only keep playing with that level of energy for so long. And they never got going in the half court in a transition in this game at all. Delpesh started out relatively effective, but Jack Donnelly kind of won that battle in the second half. And
Jack Donnelly was really good, to be fair.
Yeah, Boban, he's in your top 3 league enigmas. Because there are times you see, and you give him the ball anywhere within 18 foot, and it's a basket, and he's scoring. And there are times where he can't catch it, or he'll travel, or he'll get in his own head, and he'll be sat down after 3 minutes, and 3 turnovers, and that's it. It's just I don't know. I've not been around him, so I don't know if it's a mental focus, if it's a physical thing, and who knows. But he is, he has the ability to finish in both the front, both at front of the rim and from about 15 foot out, and also with both hands. So he was really good, and they were looking to find him.
And actually, it was a couple of scores from him that pushed the lead out to 65-56. And then you get to the last 5 minutes, and you think, we've seen this movie play out this season. Can Surrey find a new way of losing, or are they going to get over the line this time?
Well, I thought they did a far better job defensively. I thought they got into Bristol's faces for the 3-point line, which is a massive thing. So there were very few. Miller made one in the first half, but apart from that, there were very few walk-up 3-point shots, which kind of Bristol liked to bet the ball up early to come back and punch you in the face. And outside of that, they did a decent job of clogging the lane up. So that multiple times you'd see Bell or King driving, and there were multiple bodies there, and they're having to chuck something up. So no, they deserved it. They played with a composure that they haven't had. There were less wasted possessions. As the team develops, they become less wasted possessions. Every game there's less screw ups, which cost you the game. So yeah, good.
Mahan, Bell, and Watson Gale made some threes to get it down to 5, but a couple of good plays from Johnson, and they made enough free throws to keep 2 shots ahead, and always looked like they were going to get over the line. So Wang, 21 points and 9 rebounds. Taylor, 16.7 assists. Jack Donnelly, 15 points, 8 rebounds. Lawrence, 4 of 5 3-pointers for 14 points.
Yeah, I don't think they defended Lawrence very well. I just said Taylor doesn't get many assists. He just told me he got 7, so there you go. Shows what I know. But no, Lawrence, you have to defend Lawrence in a very, very specific way. You have to be right up into him. And they weren't. There was one wonderful moment on the wing where he caught a pass and motioned for maybe Martin to come from the top and set a screen. As soon as the defender turned his head to see where the screen was coming from, he rose up and he shot it. And then the rotation was perfect, and it was always going in. He's a high level player with probably not a high level body. To be honest, his body just doesn't work as well as it would. It would be nice if it did, if it was healthy. And you really have to be very, very aware of him. I think he is the link in that team, which is really helping them. It allows Taylor to be himself, basically, without having to worry about everything else going on around him.
King had 21, Bell 12, Watson Gale 11. They were 27 of 74 shooting, 8 of 27 from 3.
Yeah, the slats was like 39, 29, 64 or something from the cuts. That's not very good.
No. First home win of the season for the Scorchers, and they are now 12-1 on New Year's Day.
I'm petitioning the league to have a 1-day season every year. Or alternatively, a knockout competition played entirely at Surrey Sports
on New Year's
January.
Yeah. So for the first time ever in British Basketball League history, there was another game on New Year's Day that wasn't in Guildford. And that was at Manchester, where the Manchester Giants beat the Newcastle Eagles 99-97. Mockford was back for the Eagles, but without Kyle Johnson. You were saying earlier he's got a bit of a hamstring issue, presumably that's
It
why he
looked
was
like it,
out.
yeah.
Williams, Fletcher, Robertson hitting threes, 15-5 after 4 minutes. Cohen then hitting threes to keep Newcastle going. They got 11 in a row, and it was the game you were kind of expecting here, 20-22 after 8 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Newcastle plugged Dubiaro into the starting lineup, kept Kennedy on the bench, which is a bit of a promotion for him. It was a scoring race. Let's be clear, it was a scoring race, and eventually, and it's not a good thing to get into a scoring race in Manchester in their own gym. The reality was they had just more scorers than Newcastle, because Newcastle got 2 of 15 out of 2 of their starters, which was Donovan Johnson and Ubiaro. And that said, those 2 of 15, they were all good shots. You know, they were good shots, and you got to knock them down, because I thought both teams basically got whatever they wanted the whole game. Maybe that Manchester, maybe in the first few minutes of the fourth quarter, maybe they took Newcastle out of some things and got a few stops, but I'm not sure if that was more to do with Newcastle's lineup, not having Kyle Johnson and having some foul trouble. You know, I thought it was a Christmas game, basically. You have a present.
Yeah. What's that famous Boxing Day football graphic where they put it up and it was like 7-4 and 6-5?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
1964, I think, something like that. And yeah, and I was a little bit disappointed from Newcastle's perspective, because halfway through the second quarter, they're playing some really nice basketball.
Kennedy Hamlet threes. They'd been on a 30-7 run and were leading
30-7 run, but the ball was popping. They're playing offensively for a team that, if you go back to that game, I think Sheffield you did earlier in the season, which was just, it was like glue to the eyeball.
Yeah.
And it really, it was a first team at 60. First team at 60 doesn't just win; they get a kind of an open top bus around the town. And then you look at what they are now, in the way that the ball is popping and the shots are being made, and they all kind of seem to know their roles. It's like night and day. So yeah, so they played real. But I thought at the end of the middle of the second quarter, their defense disappeared, and you can't keep. And it started off with Manchester a scouting report team. If you let Nick Lewis shoot the basketball, if you let Dirk Williams shoot the basketball off the catch, if you play Ramon Fletcher straight up, which basically means just standing in front of him, right? You are dead first, dead second, and 3 times dead with Ramon, right? It's unsustainable. They will make those shots all day, and I didn't think Newcastle had anywhere near sufficient understanding of the specific skills of the Manchester players. You've got to make Dirk drive. Dirk doesn't pass the ball particularly well. He can finish from anywhere on anybody. But once he drives, you've got a chance. You might take a charge, or you might get a deflection, or you might miss, whatever. They didn't. You've got to make Nick Lewis do the same thing. They didn't. They showed, and again, Donovan Johnson hurt them because he couldn't make a shot. He was like 6 in the first half, and that hurt them because it meant that Mark's rotation was reduced. Everett, again, is hardly getting off the bench. So, obviously there's something happening there. And they relied ultimately in the first half on scoring-wise on Defoe again. Came in and dominated, and Hamlet and Cohen.
Yeah.
And whereas Manchester, when Lewis got going, and without William Lee, all you got to do is shut down one of those guys with Manchester, because they're not playing that much defense. You're going to score 90. So if you shut down Lewis, Fletcher, or Williams, just one of those 3, you got a chance. And they were never going to shut down Fletch, because he's got an athletic advantage on all the guards. But you can get up into Nick Lewis, you can get up into Dirk Williams and make it harder for them, and they didn't do that. I thought that's where the game was lost at the end of the second quarter. They gave up points after points and ended up down 56-55. And 56-55 is Manchester's game.
Yeah.
55-45 is Newcastle's game.
Yeah.
The speed, 56-55, those points are desperate.
It is the highest scoring first half of the season with 111 points. And
well, it's 2 teams who play good offense. I'll give you. I'm not. Can't be entirely negative about it. I don't know how to translate it against teams playing better defense, but 2 teams that really look comfortable in themselves, and some gifted scorers. The way Cohen shot the ball early, the way that obviously Dirk plays, the way Nick Lewis plays, and even Robertson with his offensive rebounding. I'm gathering he must have appealed his disqualification.
I don't know. I was wondering that as well. I didn't know if maybe bank holidays or something. I don't know. I've not heard anything. Usually there's a press release or something saying anything, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Because this would logically be the game that he would serve a suspension.
Yeah, well, this would ordinarily in every other season that we've ever dealt with. You know, the game in 7 days' time doesn't count, but the game in 9 days' time does.
Does, yeah.
So I mean, if now even if he might have appealed, I'm not sure what it's
Yeah.
got to appeal over, but it might have been a technical thing to appeal and keep him out until William Lee gets back.
Yeah,
I mean, this is where the rules really aren't very good because
No.
there's no reason why it shouldn't be an automatic disqualification for a game on the next game that you play. You know, why not? You know, and if they're going to do it, if an appeal is going to go in, then you do it. You can do it within 2 days. You don't need to wait 3 weeks. It's not like it's Nuremberg, is it?
No.
On TV.
Going back to the scoring, it's the highest scoring first half in Manchester since they entered the BBL in 2012, surpassing 109, which was also Manchester versus Newcastle in October 2013. It also ties the highest ever scoring half involving the Giants at home, which was 111 points in the second half, which was also against Newcastle in April 2016. And Philip Brown reminded me 111 was the final score total between Sheffield and Cheshire earlier this season.
Right, I think I'll start listening again now.
Yeah. I'm back in.
Okay.
So Eagles up 5 after a couple of minutes. Then Lewis started. Dirk Williams continued a 21-4 run over 7 minutes to lead 80-68. Eagles.
That was just the run where Manchester were comfortable, you know, and Newcastle event, you know, Newcastle, I say, had 3 scorers in the first half, primarily Darius, Javion Hamlet and David Cohen, and they needed somebody else to step up. They didn't have Kyle Johnson, who probably would have been that 4th guy. And they had a drought, which is what happens when you play on the road in a scoring race. It's always the road team that has the drought.
But they did respond, a 10-3 run to get it to 84-78, then a Hamlet layup, Kennedy dunk, 93-91. Robertson missing 2 free throws with 3 minutes to go. Kennedy dunk again, 93-93, 2:45 to go, and then it's who can make the plays down the stretch to win.
Yeah, again, they were playing through Darius. You know, Darius was making shots and making passes out the high post, and he got a couple of slips to Jamal Kennedy. And that's kind of indicative of Manchester's defense because, you know, the first time he got a pass to Kennedy for a layup on the same play. The second time, where you think they might know what's coming, he actually gets a dunk. You know, it's even less defense the second time when they run exactly the same play, literally a minute later. But Manchester's got guys who are already thinking about how they're going to go and score down the other end. That's fine, you know, because they win games that way in the BBL. And what happened was that at this point, you know, Newcastle's defense at the end of the game on the guys who were going to have the ball was pretty woeful. You know, Fletch did what he does, but he did what he does. You know, if Javion Hamlet's going to step forward with his right foot and Ramon Fletcher is going to go left, then it's going to be a foul. It's done, you know. If Dirk Williams is going to if you're going to switch Hassan French on the Dirk Williams, and Hassan French is an athletic big guy who does move his feet, but you can't switch him on Dirk Williams the minute to go in the game and allow him to drive right. Well, we've seen that move 100 times.
You've jumped a little far.
Sorry.
Let me just run through with that. So Fletch drives left 2.5 minutes to go, 95-93.
Yeah.
Defoe, who at this point was 8 for 8 from the floor, 2 of 2 from the free throw, misses his first shot of the game at the top of the key with 2:14 to go. Fletcher drive, 2 free throws, 97-93, and then Defoe, as you say, fatigue, misses a second one on a spin. Is the only 2 misses he had in the game. Green then with a travel in transition, and French given a wide open corner 3 and big shot, didn't make it.
Not a shot. I mean, again, this is kind of a glitch that teams need to figure out. You know, what happened was that they ended up with Darius setting the screen on the far wing, and French, you know, stepping out the space of floor, which is fine, but that needs to be French setting the screen on the far wing and Darius stepping out the space of floor. You know, Darius is 8 of 10. He's made 6 jump shots. Or
Donovan Johnson.
Well, yeah, but he's 1 of 9.
Yeah, no, not in the way he'd played in this game, but in general.
Yeah, that's where your stretch 4 is going to be.
And
so the reason it's always what we say is it's like the Ryan Martin thing. There's a reason that you're open. You know, you always say, you know, that's a win for Manchester. And shooting that shot is a win for Manchester. That really should have been the game, but Manchester, I say that they're not that good at closing stuff out either because they play at
So they took a little too long, and then Lewis was basically blocked on the shot clock basket buzzer. Kennedy runs it back, gets to the basket 97-95 with 48.6 to go. Fletcher then misses a three. Green did a good job of battling with Defoe, so it goes out.
No, that was a bad call. That was biased, but I thought it was a bad call. I watched that back. I thought that was pretty clearly off Green. I thought when you look at Green, if you look at Green's reaction of frustration when he looks after he knocks the ball out, not Defoe's reaction, because Defoe's always going to point his direction.
Yeah.
I got no problem. I'm not trusting Darius's reaction at all.
Yeah.
But Green's.
I actually thought Defoe's reaction was slightly muted, which made me think it was the right call.
And down the end, Darius tends to get quite muted because he's worried about technicals, because Fab always used to shout at him about the risk of technicals. But no, anyway, I thought, but the point is, you're in a scoring race in Manchester. That's the reason you can win those games, is because they're not the calls that you're going to get. You know, if it's left to a 50-50 call, which I can look back on YouTube and say, possibly, 90%, I think it was wrong. But tough, you don't get sympathy for that.
And then we get to the play you were just talking about. Dirk runs some time off the clock. There's obviously 14 on the shot clock, so Newcastle can play defense because of the differential between shot and game clock. Dirk has got French in front of him, so he's quite happy with that matchup. Attacks that long arm that he's got.
They switched on the screen. It's too, I think Hassan French is going to be a hell of a defender in the league. He's got he has something about the way that his quickness of feet and his athleticism. But he doesn't know Dirk Williams. He's played 5 games. He's never seen Dirk Williams before. He's a mismatch because he is, Dirk is the next level. He's a next level attacking. And we all know what Dirk's move is, and that is exactly Dirk's move. So I thought Newcastle's defense, with Fletcher, with Lewis, with Dirk Williams, was entirely passive. And it was allowing them to go where they wanted to go, which means that they got comfortable, which means that down the stretch, they're going to make plays. And that's what it came down to. It came down to individual plays down the stretch. If you've got Dirk Williams, if you're going to give me a Ramon Fletcher going left and Dirk Williams going right against the Hassan French 3-point shot from the corner, well, there's only one. I'll take those odds every day of the week, twice on Sundays and 4 times on New Year's Day. So that's why they won, because the players that they pay to make shots were allowed to make shots, and Newcastle didn't do enough to take them out of that. Because so that 4-point game kind of, and then Mark called a timeout, didn't he? 12 seconds to go, and again, he over elaborate play, because
you need a quick score.
You need a quick score, and what they did was they started with Hamlet down at the bottom, with the idea that throw it to Darius and it'll be a quick dribble handoff for Javion Hamlet. Problem is, but by the time that dribble handoff is coming, Javion Hamlet to turn around, 12 seconds has become 7. Now, those circumstances, you give him the ball, you just get him the ball, and then you set your screen or whatever you're going to run, and you let him attack. You can't blow 5 seconds just by him coming up to pick up the handoff, because you can blow up a dribble handoff. So although that was over elaborate, and they got a play out of it. I mean, Hamlet was incredible all night, to be honest. From an offensive perspective, if Hamlet had played like Dirk Williams, if Hamlet had been Dirk Williams, we've all been saying, wow, that's what Dirk Williams does. Hamlet is like 33.6 assists, something like that. Really, really good. And even then he made a play to Defoe for a layup, but it's 2 seconds.
It took 10 and a half seconds to get that score. So
not good enough.
Timeout, advance the ball, but the reality is at that point is, as long as you get the ball in, you win the game. So Fletcher, 19 points, 9, I assume assists. I've not written.
Yeah, it was.
Green, 16 points and 6 rebounds. Williams, 16 points. They were 10 of 28 from 3. Hamlet, 33 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists.
Weekend, and 24 consecutive made foul shots over the weekend.
He's a long way to get to Kevin St. Kitts.
Was that the record? 101 or something?
No, I think it was in the 80s. I think it was.
Trey made 85 in a row. Trey Moore. That was
right. Maybe it was in the 90s. I remember Kevin St. Kitts missing, and it was a lot. I'm sure we've had this conversation before. Somebody look it up on Twitter, because I'm sure you and I have had this conversation before.
Okay, cool.
Defoe, 9 of 11 for 20 points. Cohen, 18, and we talked about Johnson and Ubiares, 2 for 15 combined. So that brings us to the table at the start of 2023. London Lions Won 12, lost 2, sit top of the table. Leicester in second, 12 and 5. Bristol 11 and 6.
I think you should play the Star. I think you should play the Star Wars music when you talk about the London Lions with their kind of Imperial Death March. I don't. I can't.
They do look imperious, to be fair.
Yes.
Cheshire 9 and 9 in fourth place. Caledonia 8 and 7. Plymouth now 8 and 8, and Manchester 7 and 7. Sheffield dropped to 8th. Halfway through the schedule, they and Cheshire are the first 2 teams to get to the midpoint, 7 and 11. Newcastle closing the gap now, 4 and 11, but obviously have played 3 games fewer. And Surrey have 2 wins on the board now, 2 and 14, and are my team to watch in the second half.
Well, they're in Newcastle on Friday night, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. See how they are coming off a win. Sometimes coming off a win is harder than coming off a lot of losses. Once you've broken it, the relaxation is just a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But no, that will be intriguing as well. And then we got the trophy break, haven't we? We all, we got a team from Scotland travelling to Plymouth and that type of
Yeah.
No, well drawn.
The rumor is that you might have to listen to one of the.
Oh dear!
Games
you see, this is not doing as well with our new CEO, who I don't think is going to be overly. Yes, I see the trophy is a difficult concept, to be honest. Yeah. Cool.
Right. Well, we will call it an evening for this week. Enjoy the rest of your New Year's Day and have a great week, everybody. We will be back next Sunday to do it all over again. But for now, goodbye.